kind of stick your head in here, and that's about it. Hey, folks, Joe Morris with Answers Heaven Speaks. Are the football games over? I don't know. I don't know if they're over or not.
You don't know either.
I think so. Hey, there's Marissa.
Hi.
Marissa's in here.
I'm here. I'm going to be listening.
Marissa's going to be listening today. I'm back in San Diego. Actually, we're in Carlsbad, California. And, normally I just do my Life of Jesus shows on Monday through Friday. And but occasionally I like to get here on a Sunday because a lot of people go, gosh, we wish you would have more of the Bible than just the Urantia story. And as I explain to people, to me, the Bible is like a Reader's Digest version of the life of Jesus and the life of Christ. And yes, his name is Yeshua. When Marisa and I do our sessions, the apostles that do come in, like Peter and John and Matthew, they go, no, his name is Yeshua. It's not Jesus. And we anglicized his name way back in what would you say, 1400s, 1500s,
yeah,
something like that. When they did the King James version, they kind of took it out of Yeshua.
I thought it was only like 218 years ago.
No, it's a lot longer. It's a lot longer than that ago. Heck, the King James version was in the 1500s.
Oh.
The KJV, King James Version of the Bible, and that's a long time ago, so I don't know what happened 200 years ago. Anyway, so I'm back in San Diego. I'll be here for a couple weeks, and right now I think I'll be spending a lot of it with Marisa. I'm going to continue doing my shows Monday through Friday, and Marisa will join me, and if she has anything to channel, then she will pop in and do that. So our shows may go a little more than an hour on our Monday through Friday. They might even go 2 hours. We're not sure. Today we'll try to keep it to an hour or less, but you never know. Marisa might hear something in her channeling mode that as I'm reading from the Bible, because today we're going to stick strictly to the Bible. And again, like I was going to say, there are many people that write and go, gosh, we really enjoy the Urantia story, but how come you don't use more of the Bible? Well, if you'll remember, Jesus was asked something very similar by his own apostles. They said, why do you only go to certain passages in the Old Testament? And Jesus said, because the Old Testament was written by men. Many of them holy men, mostly the prophets. And as I've explained, the first third of the Old Testament is the history. Basically, the history starts out with the history of mankind, but it's basically the history of the Jews. And then the second third of the Old Testament is the Psalms and the Proverbs, and that's David, songs and praises to God. Proverbs, mostly with Solomon. It's all Solomon mostly telling his boys to watch out for women, because he says watch out for women because he had like 365 wives. And so anyway, so the second third of the Old Testament is the Psalms and the Proverbs, but then the last third of the Old Testament are the books of the prophets, like Joel, Isaiah, Jeremiah, who are some of the others? I don't know. Now I'm going blank. But anyways, very interesting stories. But as Jesus was asked, how come you don't refer to all of the Old Testament? He says, because he calls them the scriptures. He says the scriptures were written by men, and many of them holy men, but some of them not so holy. And he would ask them, he said, do you truly believe that the Father in heaven would instruct that all men, women, and children be killed? They're all his children. Why would he ever say something like that? So Jesus never refers to anything like that. He refers to the positive sides. So we're going to try to stick to the positive sides. I think we kind of think of the New Testament as being all positive. But like I've said in the past, it's sort of like a shortened version. And if you go to the book of John, go to the end of book of John, John says, if all the things that were accounted for that Jesus did in his life, there wouldn't be libraries big enough to handle everything. So the Bible, and primarily the Gospels, because the Gospels are Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And those are all the Jesus accounts. And when Jesus was alive, and then his crucifixion, the story of his crucifixion, which we still have not got to, and we're still going to take us a while to get there. And then you move into all the books of Paul. And Paul, of course, used to be Saul, and Saul used to kill all the Christians. I mean, that was his job. He hated the Christians. And then Jesus had to, well, after the crucifixion, Jesus had to blind him on the road to Damascus while he was going to get orders on who to go out and kill again. And Jesus blinded him for 3 days. And then when he restored his sight, Jesus said to him in spirit form, "You are now my apostle, and you need to go out to the Gentiles." He needed to go to the Gentiles. And so that's why we have so many books by Paul, because they're to the Gentiles. But Paul was Greek, and his dad was Roman, his mother was a Jew, and but they were Greek. And so in Rome was a large empire at that time, which took in Greece. And so Paul was influenced by Aristotle and Socrates and Plato, even Pythagoras. So when Paul would go out to minister, he would start incorporating some of the philosophy of these old philosophers, because all those philosophers were from what, 400 BC, 500 BC, 300 BC, well before Christ. And in order to bring those Gentiles in, he had to start bringing that in. And so you'll find a lot of philosophy in the books of Paul, not just what Jesus had taught. So a lot of people like Paul. And there's what, 13 books, I think, by Paul. There's the 4 Gospels. Then there's, I think, 13 books by Paul. And then there are the books of, we've got, is it two books of Peter? 1 Peter, 2 Peter. I think John is 1 John, 2 John, 3 John. What's that?
Peter just walked in sweating.
Is he?
Peter.
Marisa says Peter's in. And we do. We ask all the universe personalities that may want to be here. Obviously, I don't have Marisa with me 99% of the time. And so they're here, and I may not recognize they're here, except my dogs go crazy as soon as I start my show. Mm-hmm. And so I know that they see the personalities and I don't. But I ask them to influence me. So I think Peter had a couple books. John had 1, 2, 3. He had his gospel book as well. And then he had the book of Revelation. James is in there. We don't know whether it was James. We're pretty sure it was James's, Jesus's brother, James. James the Just. And then there's, which was Jesus's brother.
Yeah, Peter said, James the Just.
Yeah. And then, so I guess James is here right now too.
No,
and,
Peter was answering your question.
Oh, he's answering. Peter's answering.
James is here.
Oh, is he really?
Yeah.
And then Jude. So those are all your books. And Jude was the brother of Jesus as well. And Jude's got one page in the Bible. And he, when we did our sessions with him, when we wrote the book, The 8 Greatest Authors, he was kind of pissed that he only got one page. And we told him, "You're lucky you got a book," because Constantine had 222 different books or epistles to use when he put together the New Testament. So he was lucky to get one book. But Jude goes back to talking about Enoch. So that's really cool. That's why we actually did a Mysteries of the Earth, and we did the whole first part of the book, Mysteries of the Earth. The very first part of it is on the book of Enoch. Moses used the book of Enoch primarily in the book of Genesis. Yet Constantine chose not to include that in the scriptures of the Bible. So for whatever reason. I think I know the reasons, but nonetheless. So anyway, I like to do these Sunday shows when I have the time. I'm a sports nut, like a lot of you are. Most of you, obviously, from South America, you like your soccer. But up here in the United States, we love our baseball and we love our football. And yay, my Padres beat the Dodgers. My brother Randy, he probably has a tear in his eye because he loves the Dodgers so much. And I used to love the Dodgers, and my dad probably has a tear in his eye up there in heaven that the Dodgers lost. But doggone it, the Padres haven't gotten into the postseason in like 18 years. And it's been 18 years since they won a playoff game at home, and now they beat the Mets. and they beat the Dodgers, and they're going to face.
We went in '84.
They went to the World Series in '98.
Oh, okay.
In '98 also, and they lost in 4 straight games to the Yankees. They've been to the World Series twice, and both times were with the Yankees. First time they won 1 game and lost 4-1, and the second time they lost 4-0. They didn't get very far. So, you know, kind of fingers crossed for the Padres. We don't pray for sports teams because, you know, that's not fair. And God doesn't get involved in that
You can
anyway.
pray that other people don't curse them because people curse the team.
Yeah, I guess we can pray that they not be cursed, but that's
They
not.
not be influenced by dark forces. I watch the hockey players that their family members in spirit totally cheat.
I can
They
believe
hit
it.
the puck around and stuff on some of the teams.
I can believe that. I can believe that. So anyway, in the past I would do a Sunday show and I'd come in maybe at 3 o'clock in the afternoon or whatever, and then I realized, oh no, the people are watching the afternoon football games. So anyway, but then I realized also that I may get a handful of live followers here, but I'll get 1,500 people that will watch it later. So that's okay. But anyway, it's 5 o'clock here on the West Coast. I'm here with Marisa. In our last session on Friday, we had basically the Urantia account of Jesus' life, and I was mentioning that, you know what, I was going to try to incorporate the Bible stories with the Urantia stories. Then I thought, oh my gosh, this is just going to go forever, and I'm not going to be able to get it in within my hour or whatever. So I said, if I could do a Sunday show, I'm going to go to the biblical accounts. And what we had been learning in last week was Jesus had been approached by the Pharisees with the adulterous woman. So I wanted to get the biblical account on that. And it turns out, before we read it here now, I thought I was going to lose my computer. In the biblical account of the adulterous woman, it turns out that the woman was, in the biblical account, the Pharisees just bring a woman in, and then we'll get into that. But in the Urantia account, it goes deeper. It says it wasn't just a woman. It was the wife of basically a bully that grew up in Nazareth with Jesus. And he knew the guy, and he knew he was an evil guy. And this man would prostitute his wife for money because he didn't want to work. And so he'd lounge around, he'd just send his wife out to prostitute, and that was how they got their money. And because Jesus had now come to, and where we were in the story, he went to the Feast of the Tabernacles in Jerusalem. And if you remember, he had been hiding out in Phoenicia to stay away from the warrant for his arrest from Herod. But as long as he was up into Perea, Phoenicia is sort of like the Lebanon of today. But he was basically in a big county called Perea. And Perea was run by Philip. And Philip was the brother of Herod. And Philip had started following Jesus. And he wasn't allowing the warrant to be issued for his arrest while he was in Perea. But now Jesus took the apostles and all his evangelists and ministers with him, disciples, and he's headed back to Jerusalem. And as I call it, the belly of the beast. So now he's back in Jerusalem, and he actually has the gonads to go out there and teach in the temple square. And at one point, he even teaches on Solomon's porch. And his disciples, his apostles are going, no, we can't be here. We can't be here. They used to say, let's go to Jerusalem. Let's teach. And then once we find out that Jesus had started telling them, look, I'm going to die. And they couldn't understand that. Now they were scared. They were really scared. And they're going, no, don't go to Jerusalem. And yet Jesus said, no, we're going. So they've gone to the Feast of the Tabernacles, and he gets into an ordination with his 70. Now in the Bible, they call it 72. And then when he's approached with the adulterous woman, the Bible account doesn't take in about the husband. But I wanted to get into these, and just so that we're not getting too far away from just the Bible, because many of you write and you go, can't you refer to the Bible a little bit more? And as I say, the Bible is just a Reader's Digest version of his life. There's a lot of good stuff in there, especially in the 4 Gospels, and Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. but it doesn't give the whole story, and we don't get a backstory. And the Urantia book is a channeled book. We assume it's from Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet in the 1930s. And I've become a believer in clear channel channeling, which my daughter does. She's a clear channel clairvoyant. And we've been instructed to stay in the spiritual. Marisa does not tell somebody, oh, you're going to meet a husband in 3 weeks, or you're going to win the lottery in 2 weeks. She doesn't do any prophecy, because Jesus told us no prophecy, or he's not going to talk to us anymore. Because he says your mind can get caught up into the channeling, and you might get something wrong, and then you're going to lose all your credibility. And he doesn't want that to happen. So in my stories, I get into not only the Bible, but I get the Urantia book, and then I get into some of our own writings as well, because we've done many books. Marissa's co-authored about 17 of them, and then I think 8 of them are hers and mine. And you can find those at discoverintuition.com. And like I've said, if you can't afford it, if you can't afford to buy any books or anything, just ask Marisa, and she'll have an assistant go ahead and send you a PDF. And you can just read it on your tablet or on your phone or on your computer. So anyway, let's get into this. We're going to be getting into, maybe it's kind of mixed up a little bit, but I'm going to be reading from John 8. I'm going to get into Matthew 10, and I'm also going to get into Luke, and I'm not sure what the chapter in Luke is, but we'll get to it. So I'm just going to kind of go in that order, and it might be a little bit out of the order that we had been going over it during the week. But let's, if you remember, he went up to the Mount of Olives when he went back down there to, let me see if I get this thing to work. Yeah. In fact, he goes to the Mount of Olives when he's come back to Jerusalem, and many feel that he's going to get arrested there. But he starts preaching, and he also sends out his apostles. He's got Abner, John's apostles, which are headed up by Abner. So he's got 12 apostles from John. He's got his 12 apostles. And then he's got all these other evangelists, which are disciples. And he puts them all together in 2 by 2s, and he sends them all out. So they're all off into different little towns and around Jerusalem and in Jerusalem, and they're ministering. They're not healing anybody or anything. Not yet. The apostles start healing people pretty much after his crucifixion. So anyway, let's get into John 8, but there's a preference to that from at least the NIV version of the Bible, and it says, the earliest manuscripts and many other ancient witnesses do not have John 7 from 53, verse 53, all the way up to John 8:11. And a few manuscripts include these verses wholly or in part, and thereafter John 7:36, John 21:25, and Luke 21:38 or Luke 24:53. So they move them around. People have moved all this stuff around. Constantine moved things around to create the Bible, and then the King James Version kind of moved things around. The Ethiopian Bible has 82 books. Our Bible has 66, which I don't like that number, but the Bible has 66 books. And the Catholic Bible has 68 books. So anyway, let's get into John 8. It says, but Jesus went to the Mount of Olives anyway. At dawn, he appeared again in the temple courts, where all the people gathered around him, and he sat down to teach them. The teachers of the law and the Pharisees brought in a woman caught in adultery. Again, in the Urantia account, it was actually, yes, they brought in a woman, but it was the wife of this really bad guy from Nazareth, and he was there. And he was there during this now confrontation with Jesus. But they're bringing this lady in to trap Jesus. They wanted to trap him because they wanted him, if Jesus said, go ahead and stone the woman, then they know that he's not really a godly man. And if he says, no, don't stone the woman, then he's going against Moses' laws. So they had him catch 22. They had him coming and going. So let's see how the Bible puts it together in John 8. So the teachers of the law and the Pharisees brought in a woman caught in adultery, and they made her stand before the group and said to Jesus, "Teacher, this woman was caught in the act of adultery." Marisa?
Yeah?
Just out of curiosity, ask if Jesus can come into this session.
He's here. He's standing right behind
He
you.
is here?
Yeah. He's
Okay.
right behind you.
If he has anything to change in this, I'd love...
They already have some stuff to change, but they want you to read it.
They want me to read
I'm
it?
writing down what they're gonna. I'm writing down the parts that you're saying. But
Okay, so maybe Marisa may challenge Jesus today. In the law, Moses commanded us to say, and let me back up a second here. We say Jesus, but when Jesus challenged the other side, Jesus has already said, the human person that was around doesn't come back. His personality and his consciousness comes back through his higher self, his soul. So when I assume, and when Marisa says Jesus is here, who's really here is Christ himself.
yeah, it's Christ.
It's Christ. It's Christ that's here. And he will account for the human account of Yeshua ben Joseph, or Yeshua ben Joseph, better known to us as Jesus. So in the law, Moses commanded us to stone such women. Now, Jesus, what do you say? And they were using this question as a trap in order to have a basis for accusing him. But Jesus bent down and he started to write on the ground with his finger. When they kept on questioning him, he straightened up and said to them, quoting, "Let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw the stone." And again, he stooped down and he wrote on the ground. At this, those who heard began to go away one at a time, and the older ones first, until Jesus was left with just the woman still standing there. So Jesus straightened up and he asked her, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" And she answered, "No one, sir." "Then neither do I condemn you," says Jesus. And he then declared, "Go now and leave your life of sin." That's the short version. In the Urantia version, it talks about the husband and how his involvement was in all of it. And they went a little bit deeper because he was moving around the circle, and writing and writing and writing. And as we know, at least from the Urantia accounts, Jesus wasn't allowed to leave anything in writing, nothing in writing. They didn't want him to, God left it up to men to tell the story. And they didn't want idols. They didn't want idols. And we would have idolized things that Jesus wrote on. Notice that he never left anything in writing. In fact, he even destroyed the few things that he actually had made and that he had written on at his Nazareth home when he was younger. If you remember that part of the story as well. So we don't have anything. We don't have any idols to worship as opposed to worshiping the Spirit. And that would be Christ. So here's a dispute over Jesus' testimony in John's account. He says, when Jesus spoke again to the people, he said, and this is just, you can just picture the Pharisees, there's just steam coming out of their ears. Because here's what Jesus says. He says, "I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life." And the Pharisees challenged him, and here you are appearing as your own witness, they said. Your testimony is just not valid. And Jesus answered, "Even if I testify on my own behalf, my testimony is valid, for I know where it came from and where I am going. But you have no idea where I come from or where I'm going. You judge by human standards, and I pass judgment on no one." This is Jesus. He continues, he says, "But if I do judge, my decisions are true, because I am not alone. I stand with the Father who sent me. In your own law, it is written that the testimony of two witnesses is true. I am one who testifies for myself. My other witness is the Father who sent me." Then they asked him, "Where is your Father?" And he says, you do not know me or my Father, Jesus replied. If you knew me, you would know my Father also. So you can just imagine, out comes the steam from the ears again. Continuing on with John 8, he says, he spoke these words while teaching in the temple courts, near the place where the offerings were put. Yet no one seized him, because his hour had not yet come. In the Urantia account, they didn't want to seize him because there were so many people around, and there were so many people following him. They knew that it would create a riot, just an absolute riot, or a rebellion, if they dared to arrest Jesus during the Feast of the Tabernacles. They were going to find a quiet time, and we'll get into that later in the story, when they'll get to, I think, where is he? He's up at Gennesaret, I believe, or he might be back up on the Mount of Olives again when they actually do arrest him. But we'll get into that story as we go along. So here we get into the dispute over who Jesus is. And again, we're sticking strictly to the Bible. I'll ad-lib a little bit as to how the story went in the Urantia book as opposed to the Bible when I can remember it. Don't forget, my gray matter is just kind of deteriorating as the years go on. Anyway, we're into verse 21. Once more, Jesus said to them, I am going away, and you will look for me, and you will die in your sin. Where I go, you cannot come. And this made the Jews ask, will he kill himself? Is that why he says, where I go, you cannot come? And Jesus continued. He says, you are from below. Now, you can imagine, Jesus is looking at these Pharisees in their fancy clothes who stand on the street corners just preaching, but they're dirty as crap on the inside, clean on the outside. And Jesus looks him right in the face. He says, you are from below. I am from above. You are of this world. I am not of this world. I told you that you would die in your sins. If you do not believe that I am he, you will indeed die in your sins. And these are people who thought they were sinless. Of course, they're filled with sin. I mean, they're greedy. They're mean. So he said, who are you? They asked. And just what I have been telling you from the beginning, Jesus replied. Just what I have been telling you from the beginning. Jesus goes on. He says, I have much to say in judgment of you, but he who sent me is trustworthy. Speaking of the Father. And what I have heard from him, I tell the world. They did not understand that he was telling them about his Father. So Jesus said, when you have lifted up the Son of Man, Jesus is the Son of Man. He's here to save mankind. He refers to himself as the Son of Man. And don't forget, he only very quietly to John, James, and Peter up at the Mount of Transfiguration, he admitted that he was the Son of God, but he said, tell no one, tell no man, tell no one until after I leave. So he continues to refer to himself as the Son of Man. And he says, when you have lifted up the Son of Man, then you will know that I am he, and that I do nothing on my own, but speak just what the Father has taught me. The one who sent me is with me. He has not left me alone, for I always do what pleases him, just like my hat. In God we trust. In God we trust. Even as he spoke, many believed in him. This is now the dispute over whose children Jesus' opponents are. And it goes into verse 31. We're still in the book of John. John 8. To the Jews who had believed him, Jesus said, if you hold to my teaching, you are really my disciple. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. We all know that passage. The truth will set you free. I wish our political leaders knew that. They don't. It doesn't matter what country. Every country has got leaders that are just Luciferian. They're just Luciferian. Not all, but most are. And the truth means nothing to them. They try to make up their own truth.
Actually, they're satanic, not Luciferian.
Jesus said that they're satanic, not Luciferian. Well, I kind of put them both together. Luciferian as satanic. Who was that said that?
Peter and Jesus.
Peter and Jesus just said that.
Satanic, not Luciferian. Interesting.
then you will know when you follow Christ, when you understand Christ. And I know you spiritualists out there, you kind of cringe when I mention Christ and mention Jesus, because you think of, you pair that up with religion, and you realize that churches are basically businesses, and sometimes they aren't run by really holy men. I mean, how many times they love to put it into the newspapers how some pastor has fallen. Even at our own church in Carlsbad, North Coast Calvary Church had an associate pastor who was going to take over Mark Foreman's place. And he was caught in the act of having sex with a foster child.
Oh, gross.
And he now sits in jail for the next 10 years. And this is somebody who would get up weekly and talk to the flock. I mean, I can understand why many of you out there don't necessarily trust the church, and so you cringe when I mention Jesus or Christ. But Jesus says, you don't have to go to church because he is the church. You can live by the will of the Father. That's what you need. If you want that gathering of fellowship, yes, you'll find that in church. And you'll find fellowship of singing praises to Christ as well. But if you cringe and you go, oh, no, I don't know about that. And I don't, because even I, as much as I go to church, and I belong to a few of them, I haven't belonged. I've always been attenders, because I would find that once you join those churches, they take advantage of you. And they want all your money, they want all your time, and you find out you have no time for anything else. And so as an attender, you can enjoy the passages that are brought to you on a Sunday morning or a Saturday night, and then go about your day. Just go about doing the will of the Father. So stick with me, spiritualists out there, as I'm speaking of Jesus' life. It's very important, because we are all one. We are all one. And we are all one because we all come from Christ. Christ created all the souls. He created the oversouls of this earth, who created the souls for this earth. One of those oversouls was not so good. He was good when he was creating the souls, but he turned on God and decided he was God. So I tell you, and Jesus can correct me if he wants to, 1/12 of our population are the souls of the dark side, and they live among us. And I think they're all...
Lower self.
What's that?
Only in the lower self. We all have only in the lower chakras. Our 1/12 of the soul's fallen. Everybody up here at the heart is still one.
So anybody above the heart. I would assume those that were basically children of the devil have found a way to find the light and move above.
If they find their way to the heart, then the devil thing is gone.
Okay.
But they can always fall back down into it if they fall into greed and lust and the flesh. She says it's all about the flesh versus the spirit. So if you go into the flesh, you could possibly be one of the Luciferian spirits.
I guess we can fall. I mean, it doesn't mean that only 1/12 of the population is made up of the children of the devil, because we can all fall, is what he's saying. He's saying we can all fall. We can all become basically children of the devil. And that's what Jesus is telling the Pharisees. You're all from the devil.
Those souls aren't allowed to incarnate anymore, he says. The ones that are part of that oversoul are not allowed to incarnate anymore.
That's
just
how,
here in the astral plane.
Yeah, that's why I tell people, I said, if you got a kid that was born after November 2011, you've got an amazing child. Yeah. Because that generation is going to save this world. I mean, those kids that you look at between the ages of 0 or 1.
But the world's doing everything they can to inject the world into
11. It. Yeah, that's why they're trying to
all
take out all the children right now.
Take the cells from the dark side beings, put them in them, and now they're dark side too.
Oh, I just think of all the perversion that's being pushed on all these children right now. And these are children of the light.
Yeah.
Everyone, after we advanced, the earth advanced, it started moving up towards the 5th dimension on November 11, 2011. And we hate to use specific dates, but that's the specific date. We all think of 12-12-12, but it was really 11-11-11 when things changed on this earth. And every child born after that date is now very special. Very special. Look at your children different. If you have kids who are 11 and under right now, because we're close to a November 11th again, that would make it 11 years old. So any kids that are 11, basically 11 and under, are really, really special. And you may think they're just snotty little kids, but you know what? They're very, very special. Keep them away from perversion. That's all I can tell you. Keep them away from the perversion that Lucifer is trying to push on, at least on our nation right now. Now, you folks down there in South America, or even you people who are watching up in Greenland, you know what's going on. You know what's going on here in the United States, and it's not good. It's not good. But as I say, we're in the time of the red horse right now. And we are in the time of the revelation. The white horse has already been here, but the white horse can come back and stop the progression of the four horses. So as we say, we want the white horse to come back and save the world. So please, white horse energy, please come back, come back, come back.
The white horse is like this. He's like, has his head turned like, I'm not looking, and his eye is like looking because he wants to come back, but he can't. Not for 2 more years.
2 more years?
That's what they said.
Oh my gosh, we got to deal with the red horse for 2 more years. No prophecy, Marissa. Ay.
When the cameras are off, I'll tell you what they're saying.
Yeah, that's true. So Jesus says, then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. But they answered him, we are Abraham's descendants and have never been slaves of anyone. How can you say that we shall be set free? And Jesus replied, verily, verily, truly, I tell you, everyone who sins is a slave to sin. Now, a slave has no permanent place in the family, but a son belongs to it forever. So if the Son sets you free, referring to himself, you will be free indeed. Again, steam coming out of their ears. So Jesus says, I know that you are Abraham's descendants, yet you are looking for a way to kill me, because you have no room for my word. I am telling you what I have seen in the Father's presence, and you are doing what you have heard from your father. Abraham is our father, they answered. And if you were Abraham's children, said Jesus, then you would do what Abraham did. As it is, you are looking for a way to kill me, a man who has told you the truth that I heard from the Father. Abraham did not do such things. Jesus goes on, he says, you are doing the works of your own father. We are not illegitimate children, they protested. The only father we have is God himself. And Jesus said to them, if God were your father, you would love me, for I have come here from the Father, God. I have not come on my own. God sent me. Again, you can picture the steam coming out of these guys. They're ready to kill him right now because he's saying basically he's God. Jesus goes on, he says, why is my language not clear to you? Because you're unable to hear what I say. You belong to your father, the devil. He's saying that right to their face. You belong to your father, the devil.
Is he saying Abraham's the devil?
No, he's telling the Pharisees that want to kill him.
Oh, I thought they were saying they were Abraham's kids. And I was like, is he saying
Well,
Abraham's the
they
devil?
justified following all the rules of the Old Testament. And
Oh.
Jesus is saying you don't have to do that anymore.
Gotcha.
Just follow the simple rules I'm giving you now. Love your father with all your heart and soul, and love your neighbor as yourself.
Got it.
But they've got all these old rules, all these old Abrahamic rules from way back when. So Jesus says, you belong to your father, the devil, and you want to carry out your father's desires. He was a murderer from the beginning, not holding to the truth, for there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks his native language, for he is a liar and the father of lies. How often do we hear lies? Lies, lies, lies. All we ever hear is lies, lies, lies. Who do you think's telling us lies? Those are the children of the devil. Yet because I tell the truth, you do not believe me, Jesus said. Can any of you prove me guilty of sin? If I am telling the truth, why don't you believe me? Whoever belongs to God hears what God says. The reason you do not hear is that you do not belong to the Father, God. Here's Jesus' claims about himself. And the Jews answered him, Aren't we right in saying that you are a Samaritan and you're demon possessed? Right there, that's wrong because Samaritans were half Jew, half Gentile, half Jew, half Gentile. And they all know that he came from Mary and Joseph, and they're both Jews. So right there, they're saying an untruth. And they said, the Jews answered him, aren't we right in saying that you are a Samaritan and demon possessed? And Jesus said, I am not possessed by a demon, but I honor my Father, yet you dishonor me. He goes on, he says, I am not seeking glory for myself, but there is one who seeks it, and he is the judge. And very truly, I tell you, whoever obeys my word will never see death. Okay, this is flipping out even the apostles. I mean, not only all the pilgrims around listening to him right now, but also the Pharisees, the Sanhedrin, even the messengers of David Zebedee, and even the apostles. Now they're hearing Jesus say, very truly, I tell you, whoever obeys my word will never see death. And they understand that literally. Jesus is telling them spiritually. Yeah. So at this, they exclaimed, now we know that you're a demon possessed. Abraham died, and so did the prophets. Yet you say that whoever obeys your word will never taste death. Are you greater than our father Abraham? He died, and so did the prophets. Who do you think you are? They say to Jesus. And Jesus replied, if I glorify myself, my glory means nothing. My Father, whom you claim as your God, is the one who glorifies me. Though you do not know him, I know him. If I said I did not, I would be a liar like you. But I do know him and obey his word. Your father Abraham rejoiced at the thought of seeing my day. He saw it in his dreams, and he was glad. You are not yet 50 years old, they said to him, and you have seen Abraham. And have you seen Abraham? How could you? You're only 50. You're not even 50 yet. Jesus said, very truly, I tell you, before Abraham was born, I am. He's telling him right there, right then and there, that before Abraham was ever born, that he was the I am. Where else do we find that the I am makes a presence in the Bible? Remember when Moses was up on the mount and he got the 10 Commandments in the burning bush? And he was scared, and he prostrated himself. I always think of the prostate. He prostrated himself, which means he got down on his knees and he buried his head and put his hands to the ground. And God said, lift yourself up, Moses, for I am the I am. So that was Christ. That was Christ. That was Jesus. That was Yeshua. Don't forget, Jesus is a man, but inside the man was Christ. And that Son of the Son, he is a son of the Son, of the eternal Son, who created our entire universe. He created our entire universe. Our James Webb telescope can see almost to the beginning of our universe, which is billions and billions and billions of light years away. And so much in between. And our Jesus, who was Michael at one time, created all of it. Can you imagine what it must have felt like to be a human? A creator of everything? Absolutely everything? Was a lowly human having to try to teach us lowly humans that use less than 9% of our brain? The geniuses use about 11%. What about the other 89%? You know that Jesus did. Jesus had 100% ability. And yet he had to work around us. And we were just sinful little children. But we're still God's children. We're still Christ's children. We're still Yeshua's children. So very truly, I tell you, Jesus answered, before Abraham was born, I am that I am. At this, you just got to have to picture it.
Why did he
Because of this, they picked up stones to stone him, but Jesus hid himself and he slipped away down the corridors from the temple grounds because it isn't yet his time. But they're just so pissed off because he's saying basically he's God. And he's saying, I am the light. And all of you are a bunch of devils. Right to their faces. So anyway, we got into that. And this is very close to what we found in the Urantia account. So let's get over and see what Matthew had to say. We're getting to Matthew 10, I think. Matthew 10. Let's see what was Matthew talking about? Matthew 9. Oh, just the end of Matthew 9. I wanted to touch. When he was instructing, when Jesus they had left, Jerusalem, and now they went up to Magadan. Magadan, think of Mary Magdalene. Mary came from Magadan. And Magadan is, that 80 miles away. They got to trek all the way up 80 miles. I mean, they're always walking all the way up there to the Sea of Galilee. It's 80 miles. And so it takes them a few days to walk those 80 miles. And they leave the area of Judea and go up into Perea in the area of Capernaum. And then there's a town called Magadan. And that's where Jesus goes, and he's going to take his 70. How are we doing on time? Got about 15 minutes left. So let me see if I can get through these things. And if you remember, we're just getting into this when Jesus was instructing the 70. Because what he actually had was he had about 150 of disciples and that really wanted to follow him and be ministers for him. But the apostles and Jesus had kind of weaned them down to 70 because some just didn't want to leave their families behind. They worried about their families or what have you. And Jesus said, lift up your cloak and take it with me. If you cannot, then you cannot be one of my disciples. And he's even said, if you come with me, don't worry, your family will be taken care of. And they did. They were always taking care of the families of the apostles. Whenever they were given money or whatever, John and the messengers of David would take money to the families of the apostles so that they weren't destitute. Jesus never went back on his word. Let me get a little drink here first. Okay. So here it says, Yeshua. Yes, his name was Joshua as well at some time before it became Jesus. Anglicized. The workers are few. And Jesus went through all the towns and villages, teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom, and healing every disease and sickness. And when he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field. That was the end of just chapter 9 in Matthew. Let's go to Matthew 10.
I have a lot I'm going to ask about when you're done. So,
Do you want to intercede at this point?
No, I want you to finish that and then I'll ask afterwards.
Okay. Now I'm going to read this part from Matthew 10 because it says Jesus sends out the 12. This was originally when he just first started the ministry. Now we've long since moved past that. But he uses basically the same instruction to his 70 that he gave to the 12. So I wanted to read this part as well. And this is what he sends out, tells the 12. He says, Jesus called his 12 disciples to him. Again, this is Matthew 10. Jesus called his 12 disciples to him and gave them authority to drive out impure spirits and to heal every disease and sickness. Yes, they did. I mentioned a little bit earlier that they weren't going out. At least when they were in Jerusalem, they weren't really on this trip of at the Feast of the Tabernacles. They were ministering. They were ministering. But prior to that, they had been going out and working on the so-called miracles that they were allowed to do. And they would heal minor illnesses. But we also found out that it wasn't necessarily that they were healing people of their sicknesses and illnesses. It was their faith. It was those that had the illness that had the faith in the Father and in Jesus. And then these, being the disciples of Jesus, they truly, truly felt. Just as Marisa has helped people heal themselves of their illnesses because they truly, truly believed that what she was telling them was from God. And they truly, truly believed that God could heal them. And yes, God can. Jesus could heal you just like that. Just like that. And your faith can heal you just like that. Believe me, I've had some things that have healed on my body that should not have been healed. And it's truly my faith. It took me a long time to get there, and maybe there's a lot of you out there that's taken you a long time to get to this point, but don't be ashamed. Don't be afraid. Don't have such pride that you worry about what people are going to say about you or even say to you. Just smile. Just smile and pray for them. So then they go into, these are the names of the 12 apostles. First, Simon, who is called Peter, actually, and his brother Andrew. Yes, they were the first two called. And then James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John. Yes, they were the next two that were called. And then Philip and Bartholomew. They call him Bartholomew, but we know him as Nathaniel. And then there's Thomas. We know Thomas. And Matthew, the tax collector. Yes, we know Matthew. And then they call James and Thaddeus the Alphaeus twins. In the Urantia book, it's James and Judas Alphaeus. So different, a little bit different names.
Alphaeus, that's one of our guys.
Thaddeus?
No, Alphaeus, remember?
Oh, Alphaeus?
Alphaeus is what the tree that I always count. He looks like a tree.
Oh.
Pretty tall.
Well, the Alphaeus twins were just kind of like, how do you call them? They were the bouncers.
They sound like Tweedledee and Tweedledum.
Yeah, they weren't real smart.
Yeah.
And Jesus made it clear that, they're just a little lacking up there, but they still had faith, and they loved Jesus, and they kept the crowds intact. They were the bouncers. They were big, strong fishermen and farmers. So, and then it finishes up with Simon the Zealot, which is someone that I tend to relate to. And then, of course, Judas Iscariot, who actually betrayed him. And he says, these 12 Jesus sent out with the following instructions. Now, these are the instructions that he there in Magadan pretty much told the 70 as well, except there's a little bit of difference, and I'll tell you when. He says, do not go among the Gentiles. Well, when he sends out the 70, he does send them out to the Gentiles so that they go far and wide. So this was in the early part. Or enter any town of the Samaritans. No, the 70 were allowed to go to the Samaritans. And we'll get into a parable of the Samaritan here in a second. He says, go rather to the lost sheep of Israel. Well, that wasn't working out real good. As you go, proclaim this message. The kingdom of heaven has come near. Heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse those who have leprosy. Drive out demons, and freely you have received, freely give. Jesus goes on, he says, do not get any gold or silver or copper to take with you in your belts. He's telling that to the 70 as well. No bag for the journey, or an extra shirt or sandals or a staff, for the worker is worth his keep. Whatever town or village you enter, search there for some worthy person and stay at their house until you leave. As you enter the home, give it your greeting. If the home is deserving, let your peace rest on it. If it is not, and always raises a little bit of question here. Jesus says, if it is not, let your peace return to you. If anyone will not welcome you or listen to your words, leave that home or town and then shake off the dust off your feet. What about loving your neighbor? We get into some of that. We understand that Jesus had said that even if you're hurt 7 times, make it 70 times 7. But don't bring evil for evil. In other words, don't curse these people that are forcing you out. Just pray for them. Just pray for them. Jesus says, truly I tell you, it will be more bearable for Sodom and Gomorrah on the day of judgment than for that town. Wow. Wow. He says, I am sending you out like sheep among wolves. We always remember that. Therefore, be as shrewd as snakes and as innocent as doves. Be on your guard. You will be handed over to the local councils and you'll be flogged in the synagogues. On my account, you will be brought before governors and kings as witnesses to them and to the Gentiles. But when they arrest you, do not worry about what to say or how to say it. At that time, you'll be given what to say. For it will not be you speaking, but it will be the Spirit of your Father. For we all have the Spirit of the Father. It'll be the Father speaking through you. Just as I asked the Father to speak through me. I asked Jesus to speak through me. I don't want these things to be my words. I want them to be Christ's words. Yeah, I ad-lib a little bit. Jesus goes on, he says, brother will betray brother to death, and a father his child. Children will rebel against their parents and have them put to death. You will be hated by everyone because of me, but the one who stands firm to the end will be saved. When you are persecuted in one place, flee to another. Truly I tell you, you will not finish going through the towns of Israel before the Son of Man comes. The student is not above the teacher, nor a servant above his master. It is enough for students to be like their teachers and servants like their masters. If the head of the house has been called Beelzebub, how much more the members of his household? So do not be afraid of them, for there is nothing concealed that will not be disclosed, or hidden that will not be made known. What I tell you in the dark, speak in the daylight. What is whispered in your ear, proclaim from the roofs. Do not be afraid of those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. Rather, be afraid of the one who can destroy both soul and body in hell.
Who's that?
Lucifer, the devil. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny, yet no one of them will fall to the ground outside your Father's care. And even the very hairs of your head are all numbered. So don't be afraid, you are worth more than many sparrows. 2 things on that. Not only are every hair in your head counted, but look at your thumb. And I've said this before, look at your thumb. Not one person of the 7.5 billion people on this earth have your thumbprint. You got to believe that you're marked. God knows you by your thumb. Every single one of us are unique in the eyes of God, and not only in the eyes of God, but in the eyes of the world. We are very unique. We are all marked. Not only does he know all the hairs on your head, he knew you before the earth even existed. That means he's referring to your soul. And I tell my daughter, Tawny, I say, Tawny, you're on a big TV screen, and God and your whole team is watching you. No, they're not watching when you go to the bathroom or take a shower or whatever, but they're watching your light. They're watching what you do and what you say, because God wants you to be perfect. He wants you to be good. But you know what? The devil's watching you on his TV too, and he wants you to be bad. So don't listen to people who try to take you in the wrong direction. Always do the good. Don't return evil for evil. If people bring evil upon you, give them your apple. Give them your burrito. And then maybe they'll stop. And if they don't, then just pray for them. And we tell Tawny that. She's a great kid. Jesus goes on, whoever acknowledges me before others, I will also acknowledge before my Father in heaven. But whoever disowns me before others, I will disown before my Father in heaven. And do not suppose that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. But I have come to turn a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother's-in-law. A man's enemies will be members of his own household. And anyone who loves their father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Anyone who loves their son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. Whoever does not take up their cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Whoever finds their life will lose it. And whoever loses their life for my sake will find it. Anyone who welcomes you welcomes me, and anyone who welcomes me welcomes the one who sent me, the Father. Whoever welcomes a prophet as a prophet will receive a prophet's reward. And whoever welcomes a righteous person as a righteous person will receive a righteous person's reward. And if anyone gives even a cup of cold water to one of these little ones, who is my disciple, truly I tell you, that person will certainly not lose their reward. And that was Matthew. And how are we doing on time? That's it. The hour is done. The hour is done. Do you have anything you want to finish up with? I didn't get to, well, actually, you know what? Let me just get into this small part of Luke. It's Luke 10.
Yay, Luke, that's why you're standing there.
Luke was here. Yeah, he knew.
Luke is tiny and talks so loud.
Okay, and this is on going out for the harvest, and this is from Luke. After this, the Lord appointed 72 others and sent them 2 by 2 ahead of him to every town and place where he was about to go. And he told them, the harvest is plentiful. Remember, I told you there's going to be matchups here. But the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into this harvest field. Go, I am sending you out like lambs among wolves. Do not take a purse or a bag or sandals, and do not greet anyone on the road. When you enter a house, first say, peace to this house. If someone who promotes peace is there, your peace will rest on them. If not, it will be returned to you. Stay there, eating and drinking whatever they give you, for the worker deserves his wages. Do not move around from house to house. When you enter a town and are welcomed, eat what is offered to you. Heal the sick. This is Luke, speaking of Jesus, and this is Jesus.
What Jesus said. Matthew had his version, now this is Luke's version.
Yeah, these are different versions by Matthew and Luke. Heal the sick who are there and tell them the kingdom of God has come near to you. But when you enter a town and are not welcomed, go into its streets and say, even the dust of your town we wipe from our feet as a warning to you. Yet be sure of this, the kingdom of God has come near. I tell you, it will be more bearable on that day for Sodom than for that town. And woe to you, Chorazin! Woe to you, Bethsaida! For if the miracles that were performed in you had been performed in Tyre and Sidon, and we talked about that. Tyre and Sidon were up in Phoenicia, what we call Lebanon today. And they were all Gentiles. And yet Jesus performed miracles up there and found so many Gentiles coming to him. And they said if you had been performed in Tyre and Sidon, they would have repented long ago, sitting in sackcloth and ashes. But it will be more bearable for Tyre and Sidon at the judgment than for you. And you, Capernaum, will you be lifted to the heavens? No, you will go down to Hades. Whoever listens to you listens to me. Whoever rejects you rejects me. But whoever rejects me rejects the Father who sent me. And the 72 returned with joy and said, Lord, even the demons submit to us in your name. And he replied, I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. I have given you authority to trample on snakes and scorpions and to overcome all the power of the enemy. Nothing will harm you. However, do not rejoice that the spirits submit to you, but rejoice that your names are written in heaven. And at that time, Jesus, full of joy, through the Holy Spirit said, I praise you, Father, Lord of heavens and earth, because you have hidden these things from the wise and learned and revealed them to the little children. Yes, Father, for this is what you are pleased to do. All things have been committed to me by my Father. No one knows who the Son is except the Father, and no one knows who the Father is except the Son, and those to whom the Son chooses to reveal him. Then he turned to his disciples and said privately, Blessed are the eyes that see what you see. For I tell you that many prophets and kings wanted to see what you see now, but did not see it, and to hear what you hear now, but they did not hear it. And then it goes into the parable of the Good Samaritan, but we actually have not even got to that part yet And again, the Gospels, they kind of jump around a little bit, but I don't want to read the parable of Good Samaritan because we haven't gotten to that part in the story as he is up in Magadan. So anyway, Joe Morris, Answers Heaven Speaks. I think we've had a bunch of people coming in and out. Let's see, Marisa Carter. Hey, Marisa, good to see you. Marissa's mom, Gleda, is in there. Let's see who else came through there. Marisa, Alexia, Lisa, Wendy, Pam. So thank you for those of you who joined with us live today. Marissa Carter says, this is so good. I'm signing off now to get my kiddos to bed. Okay.
Watch later. We're going to do channeling right now.
Yeah, she says, I look forward to listening and watching tomorrow. Yes. And hopefully you'll
Tomorrow we're going to turn the phone like this so then I can be on there too.
Yeah, so let me turn it to Marissa. Let Marissa finish up. I'm Joe Morris. I'm Marissa's dad.
Well, I was going to ask you a question real quick. Hold on
Okay,
before you sneak out of here.
You can ask, but...
So the part where he said, you are below and I'm above.
Uh-huh.
They were making a big ruckus about it. They made me go and get the tablet, and then I was going to start drawing, and then I thought, no, Papa doesn't like my charts. They get too confusing.
Yeah.
I want to know if they're talking about like within our body or within what was the part that they were saying?
Jesus was saying that you are the children of the devil, referring to the Pharisees.
So does that mean that anybody that lives in their lower self is a child of the devil? Is what I want to ask them.
That's what Jesus is saying.
Okay.
And in your words, you're saying that when you rise up to the heart level, you have gotten out of the lower chakras, you've moved up to the higher chakras, and you have now become a child of the Father.
Peter goes, okay. He goes, Luke, and he like flicked Luke.
Oh, okay.
Luke's tiny. I don't know why Luke's so tiny. Luke's tiny. And he's so loud and boisterous, but Peter walked in, he went, Peter goes, I got this. Peter's huge right now. I've never seen him so big.
We love Peter, and everybody out there that watches my shows on this story know how I feel about Peter.
Anyone that comes to my classes knows that Peter's
the fun guy. He's the fun guy. John is the scientist, and he's very gruff. Even though he was the youngest.
Don't even mention him, or Rosemary's going to end up here.
Yeah, that's right.
Rosemary's going to be, oh my God. Oh, great. I mentioned her. Now she's here.
Oh, boy.
She has no teeth. Her teeth are so bad.
Imagine they didn't have dentists in those days.
You're right. They didn't have dentists, so how could they have pearly whites?
Yeah.
If you think about it.
Yeah.
I just saw her like what she really looks like, and she's just, her teeth are just so like, oh, Rosemary, I'm sorry. She's like, she got irritated with me. She says, at least my teeth aren't fake.
Well, like, you may have to explain to people. Let me explain. Rosemary was a groupie of Jesus.
Yeah.
And she was badly persecuted by her father and uncles, and they sold her into slavery, sex slavery. So she very quietly followed around Jesus and got to know all the Gospels, or all the apostles. So in our book, the eight greatest authors, Rosemary pops in from time to time because she brings us sort of like a subjective view of her view of what they are, not really objective at all, but pretty well subjective. And it's fun to get her take on the different apostles or the different authors that she came across.
She thinks Jesus is hot.
Yeah, she always thinks Jesus was hot. And he was. He even said in our books that he had to be that way. He had to have charisma, and he had to have good looks.
People
Otherwise,
don't like to look at people that aren't good looking. Is what he said or something.
Yeah, I mean, that was God's way. God decided Jesus was going to look a certain way and have a certain amount of charisma, because who's going to follow somebody who's dry and look like Paul? Paul with his crooked teeth and his flat head.
One arm.
Yeah, but people did listen to Paul. So anyway, I'll let you wrap up.
Okay. All right. So what they're saying is, when Jesus was talking about the down below and above, and they're saying the last passages that you read, like the if you don't follow me, you won't be with the Father, or whatever.
Right.
It's taken a little bit. Was made more human by the men that wrote it. What he was saying was,
don't forget, they wrote this all long after Jesus was gone.
True.
So they had to remember. And I think, and even Jesus has told us many times that the authors and the scribes kind of added to things, and then even Constantine had taken the written words of the scribes from the apostles or the authors, and even mixed them up and changed them and added some things to it. And they were really pissed about that. When we were talking to, here I am, when we were doing our sessions with Jesus and those authors. No, I'm going to let you get back in here. Most of them were pissed that their words had been changed, but they didn't want to put down the Bible. They never did, because even in his own way, Constantine was trying to keep everything on a positive note. Everything on a positive note. And sometimes if he felt something wasn't positive enough, they would go ahead and add something to it. So that's pretty much it. Okay, Marisa, you take over.
So what they're saying is that when he says, if you aren't following me, you're not with the Father, and you'll die, and all this stuff, they made it sound very absolute.
Yeah.
He keeps calling Christ the eye in the sky, like the sun, that also lies within you. It says that Christ is the eye in the sky that also lies within you. For when you can see through the eye in the sky, when you see through Christ's eye, you'll see life completely different. You'll see life has changed instantly. You'll see something that you are angry about, something that is barren in your life, and you'll see it full. You'll see it fulfilled with your fullest desires. For when you can see through my eye, and this is what I was speaking of at that time, when you can see through my eye, you will have no desire to see through the eye of sin. The eye of sin is the eye that lies outside of the path in which it has been carved out for you by the Father. The Father lies within each and every single one of you. The Father, just like as we've spoken of before, like a walkie-talkie, or like he's sitting in a computer box, like a screen that's playing something on the television. It's playing inside your mind, and your mind is wanting to duplicate this out and do what is being told of you to do. You're wanting to copy it. But when you take yourself, when you take your eye out into the worldly things, out into desiring this or wanting that, or wanting this woman or that woman, but they're already someone else's, or wanting that man, but he's already someone else's, your eye is going into that, giving that light, and therefore you are receiving the darkness within. And that darkness within will allow you to stray off your path. Desiring somebody or something, someone, a place that is not in the interest of your soul is something that will take you outside of yourself, and therefore give you the inability to see through my eye, Christ's eye. When you can see through the eyes of Christ, you will see nothing but compassion for others. You will not think that another person is stupid. You will say, oh, they don't think the same way I think. You won't say, they're stupid, I hate them. You'll say, I have compassion for them because they don't feel safe, or they don't feel worthy of believing a certain thing, or they're scared. Everything today, remember, people, is about safety. Everyone wants to feel safe. Everybody wants to feel safe when they're here. They want to feel safe and know that they're going somewhere where they're safe. Many people are dying, feeling unsafe, and therefore ending up in unsafe worlds on the other side. And this is what I spoke of below. Below the, we'll just say your higher self's soul chamber, which lies right in here, where you would say the Adam's apple is on a man, but right here, he's pointing right here. Look at him in the throat. When people die not knowing how to see through my eye, how to see through the eye of the Son, eye of Christ, this is when there is pity on the soul by that which is me, us, the councils on this side. However, that just means that that consciousness still is on its journey, and it will continue on through its journey, just not on this planet right now. They'll continue on through different worlds, different places, different spaces. And just as they say, I walked 40 days and 40 nights through, did you walk through a forest, or a desert for 40 days and 40 nights?
No, he was up on the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights.
Oh, he waits for them on the mountain. He said, just as they say, and he said, and I said, wait, no, that's a person. I see a person dying, and I see them literally going through a desert for 40 days and 40 nights, making it to him. And
it was during those 40 days when Jesus confronted the devil.
Okay, well, that's what, okay, oh, that's when he confronted the devil? Was he going through the desert, or he waited?
No, he's up on the mountain.
Okay, so what he's showing is when people die...
Mount Gerizim?
Gerizim, okay.
Or it was Mount Hebron? One of those two. Mount Gerizim
it's not
or Mount
either one.
Hebron.
Well, he's saying it wasn't either one of those then.
Okay. Well, it was on a mount.
He's calling it what we call the prayer platform. In my classes, we call it the prayer platform. He says it's there within our bodies, that people will get lost inside of themselves when they die, and they won't cross over. They won't leave. They'll still be stuck inside of like their dead body. And that's where like Satan will feed off of their energy, their light, as long as he can. And that's that desert that he says, this is the desert that I speak of. A soul is given 40 days and 40 nights to make it through the desert of their creation to me, so that they may ascend and enter into the gates of heaven. Many will go there instantly, but many these days are staying down in the lower parts of themselves, and they're stuck in that desert trying to find their way out. You can pray for these individuals, but they likely will not hear, because they cannot hear anything or see anything. All they can see is the fact that they are lost, and they get even more scared. So finding a way to see through the eyes of Christ, through the eyes of forgiveness and compassion. Being a good person is one thing. Understanding and knowing how to live inside of Christ, in and on Christ, within you, for you all have it in you. Living in it and on that, living in that ability to transcend all human emotion and meet anger with forgiveness, meet sadness with encouragement. It's a fully graduated emotional being is what a Christ being is. And you have that in you. It's in you. Many people are just hanging off of it, and they're over in all these different places, scattered throughout all of their memories, all their realities, and all their distortions, and everything that they've made up in their mind that their life is. So today, if you want to give up the old emotions, give up the old feelings, give up all the old stories, just ask me, Christ, to become illuminated within you so that you can find me. Ask me to show myself to you, not Jesus, Christ. Ask that the light of Christ be revealed to you within you so that you can feel it. It may be a centimeter wide, it may be your entire body, but you will feel something, a tinge of something within you, because I am within you. This is Christ speaking. And when you can begin to connect with this piece of you inside of you, your brain will start to think differently. Your thoughts will come in differently. You won't think of the old things. You'll just think of the present. You won't worry about the future. You'll think of the present, and you'll appreciate who you are, what you are, why you are, and you won't care about where you're going. You'll just know that I am taking you where you need to go. I am the light. I am the truth. I am the way. And understanding and knowing this, you won't worry about your surroundings. You won't worry about your town. You won't worry about your country. You won't worry about the world. You won't worry about where it's going, because you'll know that you are within me. And no matter what happens with this world, you will continue on moving forward in whatever it is that you want to create in your reality. And that it means being with your loved ones, seeing people that you've lost in the past, but understanding and knowing that when you are me, we are all one there. But then, again, as you move on beyond Christ consciousness, you enter into your own creator God consciousness, but we will not go into that. Most people are below, living in the below right now, because they're believing what the television box says, what they say. And even if it's for one side or another, there's fear coming in from both sides. There's fear, no matter what, no matter how enlightened you feel you are because you watch something that is not a mainstream outlet of information, it's still coming in from all directions. If it's not right in front of your face, happening in front of you, you cannot know its truth. You cannot know it's real. So do not allow your emotions to be hinged on it. Do not allow your emotions to be hinged on anything, and do not allow yourself to take out anything that you found to be true outside of yourself on your family. The children are suffering at this time. The children are suffering greatly. And what we'd ask that, this is the counsel they just come in, what we'd ask that is each individual that has a child, begin to teach them forgiveness, compassion, strength, and hope, and begin to teach them how to step outside of their fury or their anger or their madness, and ask them to just step into the golden yellow ball that lives inside of them. Prior to age 12, everyone's consciousness is a Christ consciousness. It's a golden ball of light. Ask them to find that within them, and ask them to pull it into their heart, and they will immediately and instantly not need to understand anything. They'll just know, because these kids are, just as you have said, these kids are amazing. They're already connected to me, but they are being turned into the Antichrist, because they are being put in fear, and they're being made afraid of everything around them. So teach them safety. It's all about safety. It's all about safety. When someone feels safe, they can conquer the world with whatever they want. If they do not feel safe, they can't do anything. They're petrified. So what I bring to each of you today is a wave of safety, a wave of understanding, and a wave of knowing that everything's going to be okay. Everything is going to be okay. We would go much deeper into this. We'll go in deeper when we're not on camera, because some people will take this wrong, but we'll allow Joe to report it tomorrow if he wants to. They're going to go deeper into the what are you talking about, Peter? He says, oh, there's a lot. He says, but people will misunderstand the safety and the way the world's going and what's going to happen and all that, because they're going back into John's revelations.
Yeah.
But Peter is giving his account.
That's good. We like Peter.
I love Peter.
I love Peter too.
He says, I love me too.
Well, we're all supposed to love ourselves anyway. He's just a little more out front about it.
Yeah, he is. Peter's something. He says, I'm the rock. But his name means rock. Did you know that?
Yeah, that's why it was changed from Simon to Peter.
Yeah, he's the rock.
Peter means rock.
Yeah. He says, I have lots to say. And he says, and Jesus here, and he smacks Jesus in the back. He's like, Jesus and him are the same size today.
As I've told you guys before, Jesus and Peter are really goofy.
They are really funny.
Together, they're really funny. And they, I've said before, our pastors make Jesus sound like everything was so dour and sad and dark and just.
And Peter's like he was a dead little lamb.
But they used to have a lot of fun together, and they had good senses of humor. So anyway, we love Peter. Of course, we love Jesus as well.
Jesus is funny.
So anyway, anything else to add to today?
No, they just wanted to, he just wanted to explain the seeing through his eyes rather than being him, like asking to live in Christ or be inside Christ, because we all have a little. Look at like the Russian dolls, like in our books we have, the bowls or whatever. Mm-hmm. Just look at one of those bowls is Christ, and you can jump in it at any time, because unlike school where you have to go through first, second, third, fourth, sixth, like all the way through grades, he's saying that because the planet is where the planet is, we all have access to like that the 12th grade or whatever, like our final year in high school. So we can go from first to 12th grade. We may not understand anything anyone's saying, but we'll feel safe and we'll feel what we need to feel in order to get through all the human emotions of the 12-story building, where we're just feeling angry or sad or upset or jealous or rage or whatever. But he says, because the planet is where it is, and because Christ consciousness has been left on this planet, in the core of this planet, as of December of 2019, the Christ is here. The Christ consciousness is here. It may not be a person, but oh wow, Christ came. So Christ returned December of 2019. The Christ consciousness, and anybody has access to it. You can just go into it. You don't have to learn and grow and do all that stuff. You can just say, Christ, I want to be in you right now. And your Christ body, you'll go into it and your brain will think differently. I didn't know that. And then you'll just feel different. It won't even be like a progression of, oh, now I'm not mad anymore. You'll just forget that you were mad. So if you can remember to just say, I want to see through the eye of Christ, see through Christ's eyes right now. It's eye of Christ. I want to see through the eyes of the Son. Then you immediately, everything will change. That's kind of cool.
Very cool.
Trying to remember to do that, though, when you're all pissed off and mad at your spouse. Or,
yeah, it's kind of hard to do.
I want to see through Christ's eye, or I want Christ's fist so I can punch him. No, when you get really mad, it's hard to remember.
So, say bye. We'll go ahead and wrap up for today.
Yeah.
And she'll be back tomorrow. Let me finish up here. Tomorrow is Monday. We'll get started and continue on with the story. But while I'm here these 2 weeks, hopefully every day when I'm doing a show, Marisa will be here with me. You've heard me talk about Marisa many times. Many of you have done clicked on the links and seen a little bit more about who Marisa is. But it's kind of nice when the two of us get together and you can get some of an idea of how we interacted when we had sessions and ended up putting our books together. So anyway, it's fun, and I've always said, when Marissa's channeling, it's almost like she's reading a teleprompter, and she's just rapid fire. Well, you just got a good example of that, because hopefully because she does talk a little fast or whatever, and then we eventually put it into books or whatever. It sounds like it all came out nice and slow, whatever, but. Sometimes it's good to go back when you've now finished today's lesson, for all of you that made it all the way through almost an hour and a half. If there's something that you think you need to go back on, just go back a few more minutes, listen to her again. What I brought was biblical accounts, and we all know that those can get a little they're different from one author to another. And they're a little different from the Urantia book and the Bible, but none of it is to demean either book, and it's not to demean what we're doing as well. So, God bless all of you. I am Joe Moris. Marisa, my daughter, has so graciously come into the picture as well for the next couple weeks, and we'll do this again tomorrow. So have yourselves a great Sunday. I know Mondays are terrible, terrible days. I used to hate.
Make it a great day.
Let me just give you a little piece of advice right now. If you're the type of person that just absolutely just hates Monday, sit down tonight before you go to bed, and first thing that comes to your head, write it down. Second thing comes to your head, write it down. Write it down. Write it down. Just keep writing until you stop. Don't write a book. Make each thought in one sentence, and write it down on a pad, on a piece of paper. Write it down. Write it down. Write it down. Because then you're going to sleep really good. Because all that stuff that's hanging around inside your head is now on a piece of paper. And then you're going to be able to sleep very well tonight. And then you're going to get up in the morning and you're not going to feel like you're so scattered because you have to remember all those things that you were supposed to do or things that were going on in your life, because there it is. It's on a little piece of paper. And you can check it off as you check off your duties as the day goes on. So I learned that to be very helpful for me. I just dreaded Mondays in the business I'm in. But at the same time, I dread it all Sunday night until I got to the point where, you know what, it makes sense. Just write it down. Write it down, write it down, write it down, write it down. And you'll be all set. It's all set. They're there for your Monday to start, and at least it'll get you to Tuesday. Tuesday's a very productive day around the world, and it's a good day. So Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday are always really good days. So anyway, again, Joe Morris, Answers Heaven Speaks. You've met my daughter now on these stories of the ongoing story of Jesus. Have yourself a great Sunday night, and have yourself a great Monday. And
go to discoverintuition.com. We have a free meditation on there right now too, if they want a free little snow globe meditation that you and I did.
Okay, so Marissa's got if you're into meditations, just go to discoverintuition.com.
Sign up for the little newsletter, and then we're going to send that out. It's a snow globe meditation, me and my dad doing a little thing, and then there's meditation there.
Okay, so go to Discover Intuition, all one word, discoverintuition.com, and you can get yourself a free meditation. And then don't be afraid to ask for the book for free either.
And we'll send it to you. My assistant will send it to you.
Her assistant will send you a PDF if you just can't afford to get a book. Just ask for the PDF and we'll get it sent out to you.
Yeah,
all right.
For sure.
Okay. God bless all of you. Have yourself a good time, great time, and we'll catch you tomorrow, God willing. Take care.